All right, let's just jump right into this one, because today's explainer covers a truly terrifying medical and honestly supernatural mystery. We're going to break down exactly why a perfectly healthy young man suddenly found himself gripped by this inexplicable, excruciating agony in the middle of the night. It's one of those stories that completely blurs the lines between science, deep family tragedy, and the occult.
To really understand why Vijay suffered these strange sudden pains, we have to start at the terrifying beginning. Picture this. Vijay is a 30-year-old medical student. He's highly educated, already finished his MBBS, and is currently pursuing his MD. His family is incredibly proud of him. But one night, while sleeping in his completely normal, air-conditioned room, he just wakes up screaming. His desperation is absolute. He's thrashing around in agony, having to be physically restrained by his father and a servant. The pain in his chest was so intense that he literally broke free, grabbed a sharp ink pen from his desk, and was actually about to stab his own chest to just carve the pain out before his mother finally snatched it away.
Now, what makes this so chilling is the specific nature of his suffering. This wasn't just your standard heart attack or a bad muscle spasm. Vijay described this visceral, deep-seated horror. I mean, the room was a freezing 20 degrees Celsius, about 68 degrees Fahrenheit, but he was absolutely drenched in sweat. He kept describing this agonizing sensation of something physically crawling inside his veins, traveling from his chest up towards his shoulders. He said it felt like his veins were literally going to burst from the inside out. Which brings us to part one, beyond medical science, when scans show nothing. So Vijay's father, who had some solid connections, naturally assembled a team of top-tier doctors. But here's the crazy part. Despite running every possible test, we're talking x-rays, ultrasounds, extensive blood reports, every single one came back completely clear. Medically speaking, Vijay was perfectly fine. But visually? The doctors and his family stood there in absolute horror as they watched a dark, elongated shape physically move just beneath the skin of his chest. It would travel over to his left ribs, then crawl up towards his neck. Even these highly trained medical experts had to throw their hands up and admit this was completely beyond their scientific understanding. And the physical toll of this unseen affliction was just devastating. In a span of just 3 days in the hospital, while doctors are pumping him full of medications that are doing absolutely nothing, by the way, Vijay lost an astounding 13 kilograms. To put that into perspective, that's nearly 30 pounds of body weight, gone in 72 hours. And the pain wouldn't stay still. It would shift from his hands down to his stomach, up to his eyes, and eventually, he began coughing up blood.
It's almost impossible to comprehend, but in just 72 hours, this thriving, perfectly healthy medical student was completely transformed. His eyes sank into these deep hollows. His skin turned this sickly shade of blue, and his flesh seemingly just vanished from his bones. The doctors, entirely defeated at this point, had to pull his father aside and deliver the heartbreaking news. The medicine just wasn't working. Vijay was declared a guest in this world, with only days left to live.
So let's move into section 2, the Maran Kriya, a dark diagnosis. With medical science completely giving up, Vijay's father makes a desperate call to his mother, Vijay's grandmother. She arrives on the very first train, takes one look at her grandson's decaying body, and immediately dismisses it as a medical illness. She basically says, nope, this isn't a disease. She orders her son to go straight back to Vijay's room at their house and search his bed. And hidden deep beneath the mattress and the bedsheets, they find something terrifying. 2 lemons bound tightly in red cloth, aggressively pierced with cloves. This wasn't some weird infection. This was physical evidence of a hex. The grandmother's absolute worst suspicion was proven right. The grandmother immediately identified this as a Maran Kriya. Now, according to the source material for today's explainer, this is a highly lethal form of black magic in Indian occult practices. It is explicitly designed to bind a dark energy to a person's life force. And suddenly the symptoms make sense, right? This explains the massive weight loss and the blue skin. The curse was systematically moving through his veins, literally consuming his blood and flesh from the inside out. So how do you stop something like this? To save him, they consulted a local tantric baba who outlined some incredibly urgent ritualistic steps to dismantle the magic. The baba actually pinpointed that a clay doll was buried under a mango tree in their own courtyard, crafted from dirt taken from near a cremation ground. And he gave them a terrifying deadline. If they didn't unearth this physical anchor before evening, Vijay would die. They had to find it, remove the nails binding the curse, and burn it to ashes. After hours of frantic, desperate digging, they actually found it. And the voodoo doll they unearthed was genuinely the stuff of nightmares. It was wrapped incredibly tightly in red cloth, and it actually contained Vijay's own hair, his nail clippings, and a photograph of him, basically to lock onto him as the target. But most chillingly, it was pierced with exactly 7 iron nails, driven right into the chest area, which perfectly mirrors that horrific stabbing chest pain Vijay woke up with on that very first night. They immediately rushed this doll back to the hospital. As the Baba pulled out the first nail, Vijay, who is literally lying on his deathbed at this point, finally took a deep breath. As the subsequent nails were carefully removed, that dark, crawling shape beneath his skin actually began to vanish. And here is where it gets truly wild. When the 7th and final nail was pulled out, the dolls spontaneously burst into flames. In that exact moment, the heavy, dying burden just lifted from Vijay's body entirely. He was saved. But we still haven't answered the core question of why Vijay suffered these strange pains in the first place, right? To understand the motive behind this horrific attack, we have to look back. Section 3. A tragic flashback. Sins of the past.
The Baba revealed that the answer actually lay in the grandmother's hidden past. You see, years ago, the grandmother used to practice occult remedies to help people in the village. One day, a dying newlywed boy was brought to her. To save his life, she created an utara, which is basically a transfer doll, to trap the dark energy that was killing him. She strictly instructed the boy's father to leave this doll at a desolate crossroads far away. But, and this is a tragic but, the terrified father panicked and abandoned it at the wrong crossroads, right near the grandmother's own house. The very next day, the grandmother's 18-year-old nephew, Deepak, accidentally stepped on that exact doll, absorbed the dark energy, and died instantly, coughing up blood. Her well-intentioned attempt to save a total stranger's life had accidentally set a deadly trap that killed her own nephew.
And that brings us to our final section, the price of revenge, an eye for an eye. Because here is the real gut punch of this entire story. The person who orchestrated this horrifying attack on Vijay, it wasn't some faceless enemy or a random rival. It was family. The attacker was the grandmother's own sister-in-law, Deepak's mother. She had spent decades silently mourning the loss of her 18-year-old son, entirely blaming the grandmother's occult practices for his sudden, violent death.
You have to realize, the great-aunt wasn't driven by some pure, unadulterated evil. She was driven by decades of absolute agonizing grief. Knowing her own life was coming to an end, she sought an eye for an eye. She wanted the grandmother to have to sit there and watch her own young, promising son die a horrific, inexplicable death. She wanted to mirror the exact same pain she had been forced to endure all those years ago. But incredibly, this cycle of revenge ends right there. The Tantric Baba actually offered to take the ashes of that burnt doll and reflect the deadly curse right back onto the great-aunt. But the grandmother refused. She chose empathy over retaliation. She finally acknowledged the absolute mountain of grief her sister-in-law had been carrying all those years. And shortly after, Vijay made a full recovery and returned to his medical studies. The great-aunt passed away peacefully. Her lifelong grudge was finally exhausted. So Vijay survived the Maran Kriya, but this story really leaves us with a lingering sense of dread about the unseen forces that might just be hiding in plain sight. In fact, our source material leaves us with this haunting question. Have you ever seen a hex or strange items placed at a crossroads? It really makes you wonder about the hidden histories and the quiet, unseen dangers that might just be resting on your evening commute. Keep your eyes open.